What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 2 of the Mike the Sports Guy channel. And today, if you see a little bit of the screen above where my head is, also look at what I'm wearing. Wearing some nice good old reverse retro St. Louis Blues today. We're talking hockey. Yes, hockey power rankings. We get a little bit of action to go over the final standings and the power rankings to end the season. And what a really weird but awesome season it's been in the NHL. 56 games. Well, almost everybody's played 56 games at this point. There's a couple teams that have a couple games remaining. Calgary, Vancouver's got a couple remaining. But pretty much almost everybody's done. And playoff seedings all set. So, and for the most part, your final seedings for your standings are done with the exception of a couple teams. So, figured let's get on it. So let's take a look at what we got as I move myself and my big head and my screen into the second screen. It goes into the corner, and we'll take a look at the final NHL standings as of tonight. We had 3 games go on tonight. Congratulations to the Colorado Avalanche. They have won the President's Trophy, getting a 39-13-4 record at 82 points. Now you may ask, okay, well, Vegas has one more win. It's about regulation losses. That's what it comes down to. And Colorado has one less than Vegas does, so that makes a big difference. So that's your West standings. Colorado is the number 1 seed overall. Vegas 2. Minnesota is the 3rd seed at 75 points. St. Louis got the 4 at 61. And around out the standings is Arizona, LA, San Jose, and Anaheim. In the Central, it's all Carolina. Florida came very close, but they missed out by a point by getting that 1 spot in the Central, so Carolina won the division. Tampa Bay took the 3 spot at 75 points. Nashville at 64 for number 4. And then rounding out is Dallas, Chicago, Detroit, and Columbus. Man, what a disappointment for Columbus this year, huh? And then in the East Division, the so-called Division of Death, it's Penguins coming out. Yes, the Penguins coming out on top at 77 points. They had 37 wins, 16 losses, 3 in overtime. Washington at 36-15-5 at 77 points. And then it came down pretty much to the nitty-gritty. Boston got that 3rd seed. They fought for it. The Islanders got that 4th seed, and then the Rangers, the Flyers, the Devils, and the lowly Buffalo Sabres. We're going to get into the power rankings in a moment. We'll talk about each team. And then to round out the North, the Canadian Division, as it's so called, Toronto, your 1 seed, Edmonton 2, Winnipeg 3, Montreal 4. Ottawa making a nice big push. Just really good hockey towards the end. And then Calgary, who got a win tonight, both at 51 points, and in Vancouver, you're down and out. Last place team in the North. So, without further ado, we go to our power rankings for the 13th of May. Finally, a power rankings I can finally get behind. Finally got to it. Finally got it done. I'm very happy with myself. You should be too. So, let's make it up for discussion. So here we go. Starting off, number 32, obviously, is Seattle. Wait for the clicker to work. Ta-da, there we go. Number 32, the Seattle Kraken. They signed their first player the other day. Still need to hire a whole bunch of people. Still got a long way to go. So, they're at 32 right now. Number 31, the Vancouver Canucks. They 2-6-0 record for this month. I'm going to announce all the records for this month of May within the recent play for the last 2 weeks. So, got to start somewhere. Vancouver coming off a 4-1 loss to Calgary tonight. They dropped to 21-23 at 45 points. Vancouver, it's been an interesting, challenging year. They had injuries at parts of the season, and then COVID pretty much derailed their season. This past month has been, I can feel for them. Will Travis Green be returning behind the bench? We don't know. They still have a couple more games to be played, and then we'll see what happens with the Canucks before the year is out. It can only go up. There are players that have a lot of upside. Hughes, Pedersen, but Jim Benning, yikes. Those bad free agent signings from a couple years ago, it's definitely coming back to bite the Canucks, so that's definitely something to watch for next year for the boys up in Vancouver and British Columbia. So they're 31st in the power rankings to end the season. Behind them, or in front of them, I mean pretty much in the same spot as Columbus. Man, Columbus, 2-1-2 in the month of May, 18, 26, and 12 for 48 points. Last place in the Central. I mean, yikes, man. That's a bad season for them. A lot of player movement. Dubois left. Patrick Laine came in. Bright spot was Jack Roslovic, and they had their two number one goaltenders, as they say. We hope to see them both return. I think in this league coming up next year, having two very good goaltenders on your team is something definitely to watch, but we'll see. Columbus has a lot of work to do. They need a new head coach now. John Tortorella's not coming back. Let's see if they can re-sign Patrick Laine. I think they could definitely use another center. Maybe Kuznetsov could be that guy. We'll see. Unless he decides to return to Washington. But I think Columbus could definitely use a guy other than Roslovic to help fill that hole in the top part of their lineup in the middle. So we'll see what Columbus does. They got a lot of things to figure out this offseason. A lot of different moving parts. Let's see what they can do. 29 coming in at 21, 28, and 7 with 49 points in the West Division. They went, let me look at my notes, 1-3-2 for this month of May, and that's the San Jose Sharks. Man, it kind of crashed and burned for them this year. And what a fitting end of the season with a 6-0 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights. San Jose, I can never pick what this team is. Are they supposed to be rebuilding? Are they supposed to be in the middle? Are they supposed to be a playoff team? I mean, they're built like a playoff team. They just don't perform like one. And, I mean, it's good to see Erik Karlsson come back and actually stay healthy. That was a very positive, encouraging sign, but still, this team needs to figure it out. I mean, there's too much talent on this team to be middling or towards the bottom of the standings. Granted, you did have a really top-heavy division, the West Division, but it's not going to get any easier next year with the Pacific. It's going to be pretty much almost all the same for San Jose, so let's see what they can do. Right next to them, another team in California, the LA Kings. LA Kings 6th in the West at 21, 27, and 7. They're coming off two brutal losses to Colorado. They fought a little bit in the beginning of this game tonight against the Avs, but they end the season in May 2-5-1. They did beat San Jose in the standings, but they had the same amount of points. I mean, the Kings, they have a lot. We'll say this for LA, they have a lot of potential next year. We'll see what they can do. We'll see if they can pull it together. I'm rooting for them. I hope they actually pull it together. That will be a fun year for them next year. Quentin Byfield, a lot of young prospects in this Kings lineup, and I think they can only go up from here. They sold at the deadline. Jeff Carter got traded to Pittsburgh, so let's see what they do with Jonathan Quick. I think they're really regretting that trade. Trading Campbell away to Toronto from a couple years ago. Man, he's turned into something for Toronto to use. But you live and you learn, and I think LA is still in the midst of their rebuild, so we'll see how that goes. Man, it feels like yesterday that they beat the Rangers in 2014. But the Kings still have some work to do, so we'll see where they can go from here from the end of this year. Another California team rounding it out, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim for number 27. Well, it's just the Anaheim Ducks these days. Anaheim ending the season at 17-30-9, last place in the West at 43 points, but they had a decent week, a decent end of the season rather in May, 2-2-1. Had a couple of overtime and shootout losses at the end of the season. They did have that 6-2 win against Anaheim, so I figured that would bump them up a little bit. Yes, I know they have less points than LA, but they've been playing a little bit better than LA. They've been a little bit more competitive than them. Anaheim did have a shootout loss to St. Louis, 3-2, and then 2 overtime losses to Minnesota, 3-4 each. So, also young team, have a lot of promise. Ryan Miller, swan song, that was great to see him end his career like that. Also great to see David Backes get his last chance against the St. Louis Blues. I thought that was great when they did that with him, and then did not come back after that, but that's okay. So the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, 27, a little bit ahead of the Kings. I think they got a little bit more oomph for them for next year, especially with their goaltending. I think that goes a long way. John Gibson, definitely the guy there. 26, the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo ending the season the last place team overall in the standings, so they will have the best chance of getting the lottery at 15, 34, and 7, 37 points. The Sabres having a 2-3-0 record in May. Reason why they're up ahead of all these teams is because they beat the Islanders twice. Now, is that more indicative of how the Islanders been playing or how Buffalo played? I think Buffalo, since Granato came back, or came into the fold rather, in this coaching staff, man, this team's played a lot better. They've played more structural, and this is without their captain, Jack Eichel. I wonder how this is going to play out, but Buffalo has a lot of decisions to make. I saw somebody on Twitter saying the tire fire, spitting out the tire fires again, all at one time. We'll see who wants to stay. Their general manager, Kevin Adams, definitely said, hey, listen, if you want to stay, this is, we're looking for guys who want to be in Buffalo. They have a coaching decision to make. I hope they keep Granato. We'll see. I know with David Quinn now out of the Rangers organization, I wonder if the Sabres will look at him being the guy to keep Eichel in Buffalo. So, big offseason coming up for the Sabres. Let's see what they do. Very intriguing to see who goes where from there. 25, the Arizona Coyotes. Arizona finishing up the season 24, 26, and 6 at 54 points. That's good for 5th in the West, if I get my numbers right off the top of my head. Arizona ending the season with a record of 2-2-1 in May. They've been playing. They had the one overtime loss against Vegas, and then they lost both games against LA, and then they didn't really beat the cover off of the San Jose Sharks, so a little disconcerting. Rick Tocchet's now gone out of Arizona. There's some potential on this team. I think this team, if they get the right amount of scoring, something that they lacked all year, that's something they definitely missed at times. Goaltending got hurt a lot this year, so let's see what the Coyotes can do, the organization. Bill Armstrong has some decisions to make for the Yotes. I'm very optimistic to see what they do. I really do like who they have on their roster. You get a couple key players in there that can fill some holes, especially scoring holes. We'll see what they do, but they got some cap problems, so we'll see what they can do this offseason. With this offseason, that's going to be probably the craziest one we've seen in a while. Slotting in at number 24, one of my least favorite teams, I guess, because being a Ranger fan, I know I'm wearing blues, but Rangers, sorry. Devils at 24. Devils ending the season at 19-30-7. That's good for 7th in the East at 45 points. The Devils ending the season with a 3-3-0 record in May, and I think the Devils, you got some potential there too. I think they're kind of right back at the bottom. They got to work their way up. They have some young players that definitely are looking on the way up. Hughes is definitely the guy. Oh man. That guy. What a season he had. He definitely looked a lot more noticeable this year on the ice. So let's see what he can do. That overtime win against Boston and a win against the Islanders. Yeah, they lost the second game against the Islanders, but you changed those standings. They played spoiler really well down the stretch. And I think, even though after the deadline they kind of looked dead to rights, I think they really kind of pieced it together and really started playing much better. So kudos on the Devils. Let's see what they can do next year in the offseason as well. Philadelphia comes in right after that at 23. Philly, 25-23-8, 58 points. That's good for 6th in the East. Philly also ending the season at 3-3. Reason why they're ahead of the Devils because they beat the Devils in the last game. I think that's the only reason why they're up there. They're pretty much the same, man. Philly, you had, started the season really well, and then all of a sudden they completely burnt out. And their goaltending, I thought Carter Hart would be the answer. Apparently he had some issues injury-wise during the season. Should be good to go for next year. Either way, they needed a legitimate backup goaltender. Brian Elliott is not the answer, even though he outplayed Carter Hart this season. Carter Hart has a lot of work to do this offseason to get himself back to the shape that I think he's capable of being. I think he is the franchise goaltender for this team. So he's got to really step it up. Alain Vigneault, your seat's very warm right now. If they don't make changes, we'll see. Philly's got a lot of changes to make. This roster's too good to have missed the playoffs, or at least make a shot at making the playoffs. They just completely burnt out, and I'm a little disappointed in Philly. And that's coming from a Ranger fan. I'm disappointed seeing Philly where they are. I thought they could have been a lot better, and they kind of just they disappointed in all facets this season. Let's see what they can do. The Blackhawks of Chicago coming in at number 22. Chicago finishing the season at 24 wins, 25 losses, and 7 in overtime. That's good for 55 points. They came in 5th in the Central Division. Or rather, excuse me, they came in 6th in the Central Division. Get my numbers right. There we go. Chicago down the stretch. They struggled for the last couple months. Playing the bigger teams, they couldn't finish. They finished May 2-3-1. Story of the season for Chicago. And it's funny because they started off the season extremely well, but they beat up on the teams that they needed to beat up on. They just couldn't get past Carolina. They just couldn't get past Florida or Tampa Bay. The losses against those 3 teams, man, that they just surmounted. This is a team that's supposed to be going through a rebuild, though. So we'll see if that's the case. We'll see if they're going to continue to do so. I'm expecting some roster changes, but there's a lot of talent on this roster, and they definitely found their way through this year. Alex DeBrincat is back, baby. He's a fun player to watch, and him and Patrick Kane, man, that's a great combination on the ice. Goaltending's a little suspect, not going to lie. I think they could use a backup goaltender. But, I mean, for what it's worth, I think Chicago's on the ups. I think they're a team to watch next year in that division or in the Western Conference with the way the division's going to play out next year. The Calgary Flames coming in at 21, coming off a 4-1 victory tonight of the Vancouver Canucks. Calgary finishing, currently at the season at 24, 26-3 at 51 points. They might leapfrog Ottawa in the standings if they get another win. They do have a good chance of doing so. They are going to play Vancouver a couple times, but for right now, they're at 6th in the North Division, Canadian Division. Calgary thus far at 2-2 in May, and they lost against Edmonton, they lost against Winnipeg, but then they beat Ottawa, and then they beat Vancouver. Where are the Flames at? Nobody right now knows. Brad Treliving, man, if he even has his job by the time the offseason begins, we will find out. The Calgary Flames are a mess, man. I mean, that team with that talent is way too good. And then you see Sam Bennett go to Florida, and then he does what he does. Man, the Florida Panthers got to steal in that trade. There's definitely going to be some turnover, I think, on this roster. It might be either a complete blow-up or a couple big-name players, Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, making the rounds and leaving the Calgary Flames. And a Flames team that invests a lot on improving this roster into this past offseason, getting some Vancouver Canuck players. And, I mean, Markstrom's been good, but they overused him, and then Tanev's been alright. I mean, the Calgary Flames have a lot of different decisions. Are they going to completely blow it up? I don't know. We will only find out the hard way, and that's as the offseason goes along. And that's a team that with that core I liked. I've always liked Johnny Gaudreau as a player, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So there's only so much you can do. We'll see what the Calgary Flames do this offseason. The Detroit Red Wings coming in at number 20. Yeah, you'd be surprised to see that with where they are in the standings, with the 7th in the Central Division at 19, 27, and 10 at 48 points. But what if I told you the Detroit Red Wings have played very well down the stretch? They've played very good hockey this year. I'm very impressed with the strides the Red Wings are making. Their captain, Dylan Larkin, got hurt, so he wasn't really much of a factor. If he's healthy and he's ready, if he's good to go next year, man, this team could really make a run. I mean, they're not there yet, but they got some potential next year. I'm excited to see what the Red Wings are going to do. Are they going to make a push for the playoffs next year? I might be very optimistic on that. I don't think so. Not quite yet. They might be 2 years away from at least competing for a Stanley Cup. But the fact that they can really play with the big boys this year, they gave Tampa fits this year for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. But the fact that they can play with any of the big guys this year and be competitive, that's huge strides. And Detroit definitely played well down the stretch. Even if it amounted to losses, they weren't complete blowouts. So they were all close games. I'm impressed with the way the Detroit Red Wings and Steve Yzerman have really gotten this team going. Jeff Blashill, too. Kudos on him, man. Making the most out of that roster. And it's a lot of roster with a lot of people that have chips on their shoulders for being dealt to or being put in Detroit. So, just like the Golden Knights from a couple years ago. So, It goes a long way when you're on the ice and making an impact. The Ottawa Senators coming in at number 19. Coming in and ending the season at 23, 28, and 5 and 51 points. The Ottawa Senators in May coming with a 4-1-1 record. You heard me right. I am impressed with Ottawa. This team, man, if this team was able to keep the stretch going, and if you took overtime losses away, say like from Montreal, Ottawa would be in that 4th spot in the North Division. Just saying, but that's not how it goes. Man, what a season Ottawa's had. Great job down the stretch. They got some players. Tim Stützle with a hat trick towards the end of the year. The kid's going to his backyard and throwing the hats over the fence. That was great to see. This team's got a lot of potential. This team could really be a force next year, and I'm excited to see what Ottawa can do next year in that Atlantic Division if the divisions are going back to what they are, which is the plan. But the Senators, great on them. I love seeing what they're doing. I like that roster, and they got a little bit of tweaks to go with, but they got a lot of young talent. Let's see what they can do next year. I'm excited to watch the Ottawa Senators compete next year. Winnipeg coming in at number 18, finishing the season at 29, 23, and 3 at 61 points. Man, oh man, it would have been really bad if they come away with a loss against the Vancouver Canucks the other night. 5-0 the win. I think that was a breath of relief, sigh of relief, call it what you will. They're the first playoff team on this board that's as low as it is. They're 18th. That's because at one point they went 1 win in 10 games down the stretch in the last couple weeks of the season. They finished May at 2-3. Not impressive. The 2 wins came against Calgary and Vancouver, and they lost against Ottawa twice and Vancouver once. So, and then they got to play a red-hot Edmonton Oilers team in the first round. Man, oh man, this is not going to be good for the Jets. They're going to need a miracle. Their goaltending has been a little bit middling. Connor Hellebuyck cannot keep it on his back at all times, like he did pretty much in the first half of this year when the Jets really got off to a good start. It's just, I don't know what to say. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets in the North, you're trying to beat up on the lower teams and you can't do that. You're not going to last long in the playoffs. I really don't think they're going to last long in the playoffs either. I think they're an easy out, and that's why they're as low as they are in the power rankings. As a playoff team, mind you. They're the first playoff team to come on the board. Number 17, the Rangers, 27, 23, and 6, 60 points, finishing 5th. Yes, 5th in the Eastern Division, almost said conference. They did finish the season in May 1-4. That 1 win was against Boston, the last game of the season. That did change the standings a little bit for the Eastern Division. So, playing spoiler in the last game of the season, they had a really emotional roller coaster the last week or two. The whole Tom Wilson thing completely threw a wrench in everything. But losing against the Islanders back-to-back in shutouts, that killed the season. I mean, the Rangers were very competitive up to that point, and then the injuries derailed them. I mean, losing Jake Trouba was huge. It's amazing how big Jake Trouba was on that team. Chris Kreider going down, even though he was struggling, he's a force to be reckoned with. But the big news coming after the big statement and that whole thing with the Rangers, I love seeing that. I mean, I'm probably in the minority thinking James Dolan was probably the good guy in all this, but I mean, him sticking up for the team itself, as in the players, and then Gordon and JD not doing so, that spoke volumes, and I think the culture in that club, that hockey clubhouse is just, ooh boy. There's a lot of improvements that need to be done, but the Rangers have plenty of cap space to do it next year. Chris Drury is a great hockey mind, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen, how he's going to approach getting a new head coach this year with David Quinn. That whole staff is gone. The whole staff is gone. So the Rangers have a great chance. Let's see what they can do. I think they are going to make big splashes this offseason, not just in players, but also in coaching. The roster they have now is a pretty darn good roster, I'm not going to lie. But they need some tweaks, especially at the middle. Especially a little bit of edge players too. Getting some gritty fourth line guys would be great to see for the Rangers, so they're not getting thrown around all the time. But it also takes a coach to change that too. I'm optimistic. I know there's a lot of fans in Rangers Twitter especially. Oh boy, not going to get into that. But they're not as optimistic as I am. I think this is going to be a great offseason for the Rangers, and I think it can only go up from here. they're ready. They've been ready, I think, probably since, I would say, the middle part of the season. They really started playing together, really playing well. That beginning of the season kind of derailed their season, but that's all right. I mean, if you get into the playoffs and then you're mediocre in the playoffs and you're mediocre as it is, you don't want to be in that position. I think the Rangers not making the playoffs is the best thing to happen for this franchise going into this offseason. And the changes that need to be made will probably most likely be made in the right way. So I'm really optimistic, and that's me as a Ranger fan, even though we're wearing the St. Louis Blues today. Hey, let's have some fun. Let's go crazy this offseason. They can make some really great moves. So they're at 17 in the power rankings. Next is Montreal at 16. These two teams played each other a couple years ago. Montreal, a playoff team at 24-21-11 at 59 points. The Montreal Canadiens ending the month of May at 2-3-2. Nothing really impressive. They have a million, well, it feels like it. They have 11 overtime losses that really helped their points getting into the playoffs, being that 4 seed in the North Division. The wins they had, they beat Ottawa and Toronto in overtime, but they really haven't gotten any regulation wins. They're playing Toronto in the first round. First time they're playing each other since 1979. Only one guy was born at that point, and that was the Dano Chargers, so you have a little bit of trivia there. I would like to see Montreal really make an effort, but I feel like they're not going to be able to, especially with the struggles that this team has had defensively and with Carey Price as well. I just don't, and especially that he's been injured too. That does not help. Montreal, I mean, they're just kind of there, and when they go back to the regular divisions next year, I think they'll look better than they actually will be, and that's a weird thing to say, but I just don't. I think they need a coach. I think they need a new head coach. And I don't think Mark Bergevin, if he has a good off season, is going to last much longer. I think time's starting to run out for the general manager for the Habs, and let's see what happens. But let's see if they can make some noise in the playoffs. We did say they were going to kind of be like that last year, and then they came out and they really impressed a lot of people. So let's see what they can do. Anything can happen when you get in. So. And they get to play Toronto in the first round, so you can't get any more exciting than that. The Dallas Stars I put 15th in the power rankings, ending the season at 23-19-14, 60 points, which is good for 5th in the Central Division. So close, yet so far, because early in the season kind of got derailed, and then they got COVID, and then that kind of derailed them even more. And then they tried to play catch-up. It was just a little bit too little too late. Did end the season pretty good, 2-2-2. Did get some players back. Let's see what they can do this offseason. I feel like they're just kind of got to be there. I mean, they got a lot of older players that are going into this next season. So, I mean, Dallas with their goaltending, at least they found good goaltending. But let's see what they can do. I mean, not having Ben Bishop, not having Tyler Seguin for most of this year killed this team, I think, from the get-go. And that Stanley Cup final hangover, too. A team that wasn't supposed to be there last year, and eventually they got beat. And, I mean, listen, I have nothing against Dallas. I just don't think they're, I don't think they're a bottom feeder. I just think they're just kind of there, and I don't think, especially with the Central Division being what it will be next year, I don't think they'll be a team that gets over the hump. But let's see. Let's see what they do. Tampa Bay coming in at 14. Yeah, another playoff team. The rest of the teams from here on out are all playoff teams. Tampa, man. 36-17, 3-0 to slouch at 75 points, but when you have most of those points at the beginning of the year, I mean, for what it's worth, when you end the season, as they did at 2-3-1, that does not look good. They have not looked very good. When you're losing games against Detroit, Dallas, and then you get completely dismantled by the Florida Panthers, who you're going to be playing in the first round. I mean, the Bolts have some. I would be grinding my teeth a little bit overnight thus far for the Bolts right now. It's not going to look good. I mean, they get Stamkos. They should be getting Stamkos back. Kucherov should be coming back. Let's see what happens. But they're a very seasoned playoff team. But it's very hard to repeat in this league, and that Florida Panthers team might be for real. So the Tampa Bay Lightning, They're going to come in at 14. Bring on the Gordon Fishermen. New York Islanders are coming in at 13. They're ending the season at 32-17-7, 71 points. Islanders finishing the season at 2-2-2. It's been okay. It hasn't been great. They've been getting points where they need to, but they were in the driver's seat in that division. Then they dropped to 4th, and they're going to be playing Pittsburgh in that first round. And oh boy, that's going to be interesting to see for the boys from Long Island. I think they've been kind of sputtering down the stretch. The 2 new acquisitions that they got in Zajac and Palmieri, they haven't gelled as great as they did last year. I mean, their goaltending's been outstanding. Don't get me wrong, Varlamov's been great. He's been outstanding this year. But this team's got to show more than what they're showing now to really make a push. I mean, you're losing games against Buffalo twice. I know you get a point out of it, and then you lost against New Jersey, and then you beat New Jersey, but then you lose in overtime against Boston. Those are games you need to win against Buffalo and New Jersey, and they weren't able to do it. And it killed their playoff position, and they've been kind of just there, kind of like meandering, and now they're 4th in the East, and now they got to play a really good, really hot Pittsburgh team in the first round. So let's see what the Islanders can do. I never count them out, but I'm not optimistic. And now to the number 12 team, the Blues. Man, what a win tonight. 7-3 against Minnesota. They have been playing very well, hot down the stretch. They do only have 63 points this season at 27-20-9, but finishing the season 4-1-3. Yeah, overall it's a 4-4 record, but for the Blues, that ain't bad. The Blues, considering what they went through earlier on this season with the injuries and going into the middle part of the season, I'm impressed with how they've been playing. Jordan Binnington's been outstanding. David Perron's getting hot. Oh, man, watch out for this team. I know they're playing Colorado in the first round, don't get me wrong, but this team, if they get past Colorado, I think they can make a really legitimate run. Watch out for the Blues. They always seem to play better as an underdog, and that's what they did a couple years ago, so let's see how they do. I'm excited for this series coming up against the Avs. It's going to be a classic series between these two teams. Nashville Predators coming in at 11. The Predators are at 31-23-2. That's good for 4th in the Central, 64 points overall. Nashville coming in at a 4-0-1 record to end the season in the month of May. And Nashville with the overtime win against Dallas to start the month. Then they beat the Columbus Blue Jackets. Okay, they lost the second game against the Jackets. But then you come into Carolina and you beat Carolina 3-1 and 5-0. A Pekka Rinne shutout. Oh, this Predators team is playing on all cylinders. Watch out for them too. They'll make some noise. They're gonna be playing Carolina in the first round. This should be a fun series. I would have never guessed this series would be a fun series, but hey, you know what? These two teams, geographically, they're pretty close to each other. This could become a kind of rivalry series. I wonder how this is gonna play out. I'm a little biased on that, but I think this will be fun. Battle of the Appalachians, I guess. Maybe we'll put it that way. I mean, being just a little bit over there. But Predators coming in 11 to end the season. Good on them. They played very well. They gotten their guys back healthy. Good on David Poile to hold on and not trade everybody. What a great job David Poile's done for this team and making sure that they didn't falter. And he believed in them, and I think that's what's helped this team. And they've been able to get healthy, and they've been able to play some good hockey. And Johansson showing up, that also goes a long way, too. The Boston Bruins coming in at number 10. This is just more of a casualty on the teams that are ahead of them. Earlier in this week, I was kind of going with, okay, where does Boston go? I wasn't sure. They end the season 4-2-1 in May. They end the season 33-16 and 773 points. The Bruins, I would go... I'm optimistic with them. They get to play Washington. That's going to be a heck of a series. That'll be a back and forth. I think that series is going to go pretty long. The Bruins getting the benefit of the doubt that the Islanders kind of faltered down the stretch, so that helps them too. I don't know what to expect with Boston. I mean, they're a good team. I just don't know. That series against Washington, that's a tough series to gauge. They've been playing really well down the stretch, though. So that's why they're ahead of a lot of these other teams down here, down in the middle row at number 10. Minnesota, I put at 9. I had a Boston. This is just a casualty of Boston. Minnesota playing down the stretch pretty well. Except getting those 2 losses to St. Louis. It did bump them down. I did have them much higher. However, they end the season 4-2-1 in the month of May. They also end the season 35-16-5. So that's 75 points for the Wild. What a surprising season. It's amazing what happens when you get a guy like Kirill Kaprizov in that lineup, huh? And a goaltender, too. Minnesota, I'm very impressed with how they played this year. Great season for them. First time they've been relevant like this in a long time, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do in the playoffs. Edmonton starting at the top row at number 8. I don't think you can get a team that's any higher than the Edmonton Oilers right now at 35-18-2, 72 points to end the season. They're 6-1 in the month of May. Granted, you're beating up teams like Calgary, Vancouver, and Montreal, but when you're playing 6-1 and your offense is on all cylinders and the goaltending has been outstanding, Edmonton, watch out for them. I think yes, Toronto won the division, but if I had to make a pick to win that division in the playoffs, I think Edmonton would be the team I'd pick right now over Toronto. They've been playing outstanding hockey. You can't stop McDavid or Draisaitl right now. They're just insane right now. And everybody, and up and down the line, they're starting to get scoring down the lineup too. So that's good to see. Edmonton, watch out for them. They're hot. They're going to come into the playoffs hot. So Winnipeg, you might want to get some like safety materials for like get some gloves and whatever. Maybe protect yourself a little bit more, because fire extinguisher might be good to see how hot the Edmonton Oilers are. They're on fire right now, and they're great to see, and that's why they're at 8. The Washington Capitals are at 7, and I know there's some people that disagree with me having Washington as high as they are. Washington down the stretch, they beat the Rangers twice, beat Philly. They did lose to Philly and did lose to Pittsburgh, but that 2-1 win against Boston was huge, and the way they played that game and shutting them down the way they did, I think that justified them getting that 7th spot. Washington ending the season at 4-2 in the month of May, and then they also end the season at 36-15-5, 77 points. They've been playing some good emotional hockey. I think that's what's helped them. Also, not having Tom Wilson suspended was a big deal, but let's see how his injury plays out during the playoffs. We'll see. Ovi too. Let's see how Ovi. They need Ovi in that lineup, and I think even if he's like not 100%, he'll still be in that lineup. But the Screaming Eagles, they're coming at 7th in the power rankings to end the season. I have Toronto ahead of them. They're at number 6, the divisional winners for the North at 35-13-7 and 77 points. Toronto ending the season at 3-0-2 in the month of May. That's not bad. You got 5 points out of all 5 games. Can't complain with that. I think Toronto's going to, I think they'll be, them and Edmonton, I think will go against each other unless something happens. I don't see them not playing each other at this point. I think Toronto, they're not, because they've been high in the power rankings for, I would say, most of it as I go through it in my head. I think 6 is a good spot for them. They won the division. They've been playing very good hockey. They've been playing very solid hockey all throughout the lineup. And they're getting Frederik Andersen back, and I think that's huge for the Leafs. They need that. They need him in the lineup. They need him anyway, but does he get the start in the playoffs? I think Campbell should get a shot here. I really do. Pittsburgh, number 5 at winning the East Division at 37-16-3 at 77 points. The Penguins played very well down the stretch. They were 4-1 in the month of May. And I think they're the team to beat in the East right now. And who would have guessed that at the beginning of the year? I'm very impressed with this Penguins team with the way they play and the way they've showed up and the way they've conducted themselves. And that's what guys out of the lineup. Malkin has not played for a bit here in this down the stretch. They should be getting him back in the playoffs. And you know what happens if Malkin's healthy and he's turned fully on the on switch. He goes off. So Penguins at number 5, perfect spot for them. Carolina at number 4, and a couple people will disagree with me on this since they are the divisional winners and they have 80 points to end the season. However, they went 3-2-1 down the stretch, and I think they kind of, I wouldn't say middled out, I think they got a little bit, what's the way to put it? I think they got a little bit work to do to get into the playoffs. Granted, they're a very good team. Don't get me wrong. I think this team's going to be really good down in the playoffs. I think they're going to make a run. They're poised to make a run with what they have. But when you're not beating Chicago nor Nashville, teams that are below you in the standings, you lost 3 straight at the end of the season. I have my doubts, but my doubts are outweighed by the good that this team can really show, and Rod Brind'Amour and that team's loaded. I mean, they got depth, and I think that'll go a long way for them. And I hope Carolina makes a run. I would like to see them make a run, but it's either Eastern Conference Finals or bust for them. That's usually how it goes. So we'll see how the Carolina Hurricanes can really play down the stretch. The team that takes over the 3 spot, because I did originally have Carolina at 3, and I thought about this. But when you see a team that beat up Tampa Bay like they did, and then they go, I believe they went 4-0. Yes, they went 4-0 in the month of May. They did not lose a game. They're red hot. I mean, they're hotter than the Oilers, I think, the way they've been playing hockey. And they match up against a Tampa Bay team that's been middling. And I just think the Florida Panthers, this is the year that they could really make a run. They're 37-14-5 for the season, 79 points. They were just 1 point behind Carolina to win that division. I mean, they were right there. And, the pressure, they don't have as much pressure, I think, than Carolina not winning that division. I mean, this is a team that's really good, though. I mean, this team has been outstanding. Drieger, Bobrovsky, Sam Bennett coming into the folds made this team even better. Anthony Duclair's having a good season. Hooby-dooby-doo. There's so many players I can name off this team. This team is stacked, but I think what gets totally lost in the ferns and the jungle is Joel Quenneville making the most of this team. And it just goes to show how great Hall of Fame coach Joel Quenneville is. And I think that goes a long way. I mean, last year they had their struggles. They didn't have the lineup they had this year. And I think picking up players along the way, like Gusev too. That's a great player they picked up kind of just in the middle there. Florida. Man, this team could really make a run. I think this could be the team that comes out of the Central. I think it'll be Carolina and Florida to play for the Central title, I say, in the playoffs in the second round. But watch out for the Panthers, man. This is going to be a really fun team to watch. This is giving me 96 vibes. I can only go by highlights because I was only 1 year old at the time that happened. But hey, we got to start somewhere, right? So, Florida, number 3. Number 2 is Vegas. And then, obviously, number 1 has to be the Colorado Avalanche. Vegas coming in at 40-14-2. Man, that's a great season. Colorado coming in at 39-13-4. Why is Colorado number 1? Well, they just won the President's Trophy. Congratulations to them. They just won it tonight by beating LA 5-1. But they're also 7-1 in the month of May. They're the hottest team in the National Hockey League right now, along with Florida and Edmonton. And listen, Vegas, I think Vegas is going to be all right. But they're playing a very tough Minnesota team. That doesn't really skew them in the power rankings. I think just Colorado's been playing absolutely dominant hockey. They've been winning games that they need to win. Vegas they have a couple losses. Losing that 2-1 game against Colorado, that was a big loss. But then Colorado had to play 2 more, and Vegas only had to play 1. And that 1 extra game that Colorado had to play made the difference. They kind of came out of nowhere to win the Central Division, and I'm very impressed with this team. This team could really be the favorite to win the Stanley Cup at this point. But that President's Trophy curse, let's see what they can do with that. I mean, that West Division is going to be a bloodbath in that playoff. So is the East. I think those 2 divisions are not very clear cut in who's going to win. So that's the power rankings to end the season. 32-1 as it always should be. We get Seattle next year, and with bonus, we get some playoff picks. And these are your playoff matchups, obviously. I'll go through that real quick. Your 1v4 in the West is Colorado and St. Louis. Vegas will be hosting Minnesota 2v3. The East is 1v4. Pittsburgh and the Islanders. Washington and Boston is your 2-3 matchup. In the North is Toronto and Montreal is your 1-4. Edmonton and Winnipeg your 2-3. Carolina and Nashville your 1-4 in the Central. And then Florida and Tampa Bay your 2-3 in the Central as well. which should be fun to watch, I think. This will be a fun matchup. I think a lot of these matchups are really good. I'm excited to see what will happen. So, in the grand scheme of things, I'll just make some quick predictions. Why not? So I think Colorado will outlast St. Louis in that series. That's going to be a long series, though. I think St. Louis is going to win a couple games that are going to make the Colorado Avalanche fans a little nervous, and as they should be. But I think Colorado will get it done in 6 games. My upset pick, I only made one out of all 8 of these series, Minnesota in 7. I think with how Minnesota's been playing, and I'm not discrediting Vegas, but I think with who Minnesota has in their lineup, I think they can pick apart Vegas in a couple games in Vegas. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think it's going to be a very home-dominated series. I think it'll also go 7 games. Honestly, I was a little disappointed to see Colorado and Minnesota not match up in the first round, but I think with this, I think they'll match up in the second round. Any matchup in this West Division, like I said, it's going to be a bloodbath. This can go either way, St. Louis or Colorado or Minnesota or Vegas. I just think Minnesota will pull it off. As great as Marc-Andre Fleury's been for Vegas, nothing against him. I just think Minnesota's going to get it done. I see a lot of potential in this team. Pittsburgh and the Islanders. I see the Pittsburgh taking out the Islanders in 5. I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was 2 seasons ago if I remember correctly, Islanders doing the same to Pittsburgh in 5 games. I just think Pittsburgh, they're more complete. Their goaltending's been it's been all right, but I think their scoring's been outstanding. The scoring on that team has been great, and I think that's, especially having Jake Gensel in that lineup healthy this year. But Russ is out there. Russ has been playing very well. Russ has played all 56 games for the Penguins, by the way, too. With Gensel, I think that's made the biggest difference for this team is having both of them healthy and in the lineup, and they should be getting Malkin back. So I think the Islanders will have their hands full. I just think they're more for rough and tough hockey, and if you're playing a team that's going to score against you in bunches and you get behind, the Islanders don't have the capability to come back. So I do think the Penguins will beat them in 5 games. I think also Washington will beat Boston in 6. So, look at that. Pittsburgh and Washington meeting up again in the playoffs. Washington, I just don't see... I think that's going to be a back-and-forth series. I just think Washington just being the home team, I think will help them, that last change. I hope Ovi's healthy and able to play. As much as I hate to say it because I don't like him, but I think Tom Wilson being in the lineup will also be a big difference maker. I think just Boston, I just think goaltending, especially down the stretch, has been an issue. Rask hasn't been great. He's been good, but he hasn't been great, and I think that might be the difference. Vanacek's been... What a find the Washington Capitals have in Vita Vanacek. Man, what a find, man. That's... Oof. What a find. That's one of those, hey, you found a Lundqvist kind of player in him. And you know what? I think Washington has found their starting goaltender for a long time, and Vanacek, don't get me wrong, I mean, they have their Samsonov in there too, but he's been outplayed by Vanacek, and I think good for him. That Washington team can be dangerous. I'd watch out for them. I think they'll win that series in 6. I think the North series are going to be very straightforward. Yes, you see, really quickly, there is a in 4 in there, and in 5 for Toronto and Montreal. First time they're playing together, Toronto and Montreal, since 1979. I think I mentioned that before. And Edmonton and Winnipeg, I don't see Winnipeg doing anything in this series. Edmonton's on fire right now, and Toronto's been playing really good hockey, and Montreal's kind of been eh. I mean, if you get a game to overtime, Montreal might beat you, but that might be like a 1 in 5 chance at this point because I just don't see Montreal going anywhere. Like I said, they could surprise me. I can live with that, but I just don't see them going anywhere. And then Carolina and Nashville, that's a 7-game series. Oh, that's going to be a great series. And I think Florida and Tampa Bay, as much as everybody's touting that first time Florida playoff series, Florida's been playing so well. Yes, Tampa Bay has the players and the experience to do it. I just don't see Tampa Bay making an impact. Even with Kucherov and Stamkos back, they will make an impact, but not in a winning sense. But I think probably out of any of these series, the one that I want to personally, if I had a chance to go watch in all 7 games, would be Carolina and Nashville. I think that's going to be a classic back and forth. Everybody's going to win 1 game each series. and the team that wins first, that has home ice, is going to win the series. I think Carolina is really good. If any of these teams are going to poise to make a run per division, it's probably going to be, because it'll be, with my picks is Colorado, Minnesota. I think Colorado will win that series. Pittsburgh and Washington, I think Pittsburgh will win that. Then it's Toronto, Edmonton. I think Edmonton would be Toronto, and then Carolina and Florida. Man, Carolina's poised to make a run. I think that I'm not going to try that one. Not going to try. That's going to be a fun series though, and I mean, was planning on doing previews for these series. Time constraints have kind of put that on hold, so I think when we get closer to round number 2 in the round of 8, I'll put that together and go over it and have some fun with it. There's going to be a lot going on these next couple weeks. Stanley Cup Playoffs are here. Oh man, it's so great to say that. They start Saturday night. I think we get our first game Saturday night. I think Boston's the first game. Boston and Washington. In Washington. So let's have some fun. And lo and behold, thank you for watching. If you haven't done so already, hit like and subscribe. Haha, there we go. Hit like and subscribe. Leave some comments below if you want to see any ideas come to fruition on videos. I'm always looking to make some new material. Baseball stuff's going to be coming up soon. I'm looking to get a power rankings up, probably not this weekend, but probably the weekend after. Get going on that. But appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoy, and catch you next time. Stay classy, folks.